I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Nativity Stories. Welcome to Prattle World. I'm your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to another edition of Alternativity Stories, a month-long look at alternative stories set around the most wonderful time of the year. And this time, we're going to talk some Christmas comics, some Yuletide tales from some brave and bold heroes. And I'm here with a brave and bold hero himself. It's Mr. Dan Keatis.
Hello, Dan. Thanks for having me back on Prattle World. I'm often described as both brave and bold, so
yes.
Yeah.
I'm more brave and bald. That's how people describe me.
I think it's a good look. I think you're one of the people that can pull it off.
Pull it off with my massive bonds. Today, we are going to look at 3 Batman tales.
Yes, we are. Yeah, but he's not alone, is he?
He is not alone. He's never alone. He's a loner who has quite a large family and several thousand teams.
The Bat Paradox.
Yeah, the Bat Paradox. But we are here to look at the original series of Batman and the Outsiders started in 1983.
Thank you for introducing me to this, because it's one of those titles that I've always been peripherally aware of, but I've never been inclined to pick it up myself. And I keep seeing it on Comixology and whatnot, and for some reason it's something that's always passed me by, because I think the other characters like sort of Metamorpho and Katana and Halo and Geo-Force, they're quite lesser known characters.
They're very obscure, yeah.
Yeah, so and for some reason, like, because I've got such a massive backlog of comics to get through anyway, I've been sort of, I'm not going to invest that much time in characters I'm not familiar with, because I've got so much more pressing stuff. But doing this has actually shone a spotlight on that, and I think obviously as with the Brave and the Bold, they've used Batman as a vehicle to sort of showcase these lesser known characters. And I'm really glad that I got into this comic, because it's really sort of like, maybe I've only read these 3 issues thus far, which has created complications because there are sort of like little mini subplots and mini narratives.
I think it's 30 plus issues. So they've released them in 3 volumes, and across 30 plus issues of the original series. They then spun off to go solo, The Outsiders. So to be fair, you're missing quite a big gap in between. So I can understand any kind of confusion with some of the plot lines and stuff. That's bound to happen.
But there is some really cool stuff in this title. Jim Aparo, who was the penciler on the first 2 volumes, I grew up very much with that version of Batman. You know, I think the Death in the Family was one of the first. He and Jim Starlin. That was one of I think the first Batman books I bought. And growing up, I didn't have much access to comics, and there was just this little stall in the market where I think it was 50p each or 3 for £1, you know. And
what a deal!
Yeah, I just sort of like take what I could get, but there was no sort of choice or continuity. It was just literally a pile, and you just got whatever you could. But I remember like quite a few of the Batman stories, it was Jim Aparo's artwork on there, and I remember very vividly there was one with Etrigan the Demon in, which I think was one of his as well. So yeah, it was nice to sort of revisit that sort of era of Batman. And it was what really surprised me was just like, even though these are Christmas themed issues, how dark the stories go. Into a few, like, and as we'll discuss, like, especially in the first issue we'll look at, some really like quite gruesome imagery. But you've got this really interesting juxtaposition, I think, with comics of this era, because obviously you couldn't do what you can now with inks, and you certainly couldn't do what you can now with digital colouring. And so you've got these very, very, very limited color palette, and then these very, very bright, bold primary colors. So it's really interesting when you have that, as with like Watchmen, you have that juxtaposition of the bright, bold and colorful style and the quite dark and nuanced subject matter.
100%. I think you've framed it really well. I've read the entire run, and it is fantastic. I think the last kind of storyline in the run is not the strongest. Everything before that is just, I couldn't put these down. There was so much fun. Batman's involved, and this is what I like. I like obscure characters. I like the lesser known properties, and the obscure films, the cult characters and the cult movies. That's basically what this podcast is all about. So I'm glad we chose this, and it was quite interesting to find that the writer Mike W. Barr, who famously wrote Batman: Son of the Demon, so he kind of, in a way, introduced Damian Wayne into the kind of continuity in a sense. He does some quite dark solo Batman stories, but a lot of these, they have the dark elements but they're also some more kind of outlandish, more superhero team.
Oh yeah,
elements.
for sure, very much so.
Yes, so crazy. But yeah, some great teams, and Alan Davis takes over as well, who's another one of my fan favorite artists as well. Love him on Captain Britain and Excalibur and loads of other kind of titles like that, and all these kind of actually his JLA The Nail is really good if you ever get.
Oh yeah. That's an excellent.
That is a quality title, but yeah. So I think it's a really good run. I highly recommend just getting it all, get all 3 volumes and just binge it, because it's just pure fun, 80s fun. There's a lot of kind of political kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
I always hate these people that are like, keep my politics on my comics, I don't like it. I'm like, comics have always been political from day one, from Captain America punching Hitler in the first issue of his book. I mean, how can they not be political?
I've never really got the whole keep politics out of my art, because anything, however, even something like Star Wars, which isn't set in the real world, is enormously affected by, not only the politics of the time, but also like the cinematic landscape of the time. And comics sort of came into a very niche kind of time. Obviously, they were originally for children, and then they were picked up by like adults fighting in the war. And everything is political. And I've never really sort of got that argument, and especially in the 80s, like obviously this is pre-Watchmen, but I think after you got sort of like Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams jumping on Batman in the late 60s, you had comics getting more and more grown up. It's really interesting actually that we normally get sort of the Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen credited with, this is when comics grew up, but like, no, it's really not. I mean, those are like big landmark moments in comics for sure, but like there had been quite, I think like the late 60s and 70s were that sort of like, especially in America, that sort of like cultural hangover of flower power just kind of fizzled out, and then you had this quite dark and subversive counterculture that crept in sort of like the early 70s, and I think the comics of the time are very much reflective of that.
I mean, there's a Captain America issue where he's given up being Captain America. He's had to get, the US government have said, you're not going to be able to be Captain America. The Serpent Society turned Ronald Reagan into a snake. And if that's not a political statement, I don't know what is. And in the run as well, there's the Olympics are occurring, and Ronald Reagan is there, and Maxie Zeus kind of takes over and wants to kind of run his own Olympics. And Ronald Reagan's saying, "You can handle this, can't you, Batman?" He's like, "Yeah, but keep your men out of my way."
Yeah,
like he like breaks one of his security's arm just to make a point, and I'm like, you can't even avoid it. Like there's always going to be some political message in any piece of art, I think, in the long run. But let's get down to brass tacks. Let's get down to these issues
for sure. Yeah,
we're going to look at. So I believe the first is issue 8.
Yeah, I mean before that, I thought I'd give the first issue a try just to just sort of familiarise myself with the characters and just the premise of The Outsiders. And I really like the fact that, I mean, talking about politics, like it's baked into the crust. Like the whole notion of The Outsiders comes about because Lucius Fox is kidnapped and then he's taken to the fictional land of Markovia. Batman's like, right, okay, I'm going to get the Justice League involved in this. And
Come on,
then
gang.
And then he teleports into the Watchtower and he says, right, okay, here's what's going to happen. And everyone's like, because we're the Justice League, we can't really be seen to like get involved in geopolitical things. And like The Outsiders, Batman basically going, right, fuck all of you. I'm going to start my own super team with blackjack and hookers. But I mean,
absolutely right.
It starts off with just him and Jefferson Pierce, Black Lightning, and I really like the fact that when this run starts, Black Lightning is actually powerless because the last time he used his powers, an innocent girl got killed, and he's racked with grief over that. And I thought that was a really interesting sort of like point to jump in on for that character. And he gets his powers back, and that was quite jarring for me because he gets his powers back between the issues that I read. But I thought that was a really nice way to sort of humanize the character and sort of like get a less familiar character, get the audience on side with him
straight away. I think originally he didn't have any electrical powers. I think it was based on a belt.
Oh, okay.
And then later on, I think they said that his belt helped him control those powers.
Right,
they weren't generated by the belt. But yeah, that kind of ties in with the original story. But yeah, let's talk about that. So the Justice League don't want to create this international incident. So that's I find that quite interesting, and the whole concept behind that. So yeah, and they all end up in Markovia for various different reasons.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the outsiders themselves before we go into the specific issues?
Yeah, sure. So we've got who have we got on the outside? We've got Metamorpho, who's a character I'm not that familiar with. What do you know about Metamorpho? I mean, other than the fact that he's got this amazing visual with like the white skin and the purple and orange suit and the shape-shifting abilities.
And the undies.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I know about him.
I mean, I saw him on there was a two-parter of Justice League with Metamorpho in. He's a friend of Jon Stewart, and he gets transformed, and Simon Stagg is in there, and Sapphire is in there, and they're kind of the original kind of. It's a very goofy comic, from what I agree, but he's he's the Element Man, so he can turn himself into multiple elements and use that and can do that at will, but he can't transform back. And it was due to like there's an issue where they go back to ancient Egypt, and Metamorpho ends up being controlled by the Orb of Ra, which gave him his powers in the first place.
Okay,
but all that kind of, I would say watch that Justice League episode, and that'll give you, I think, a gist. But I kind of see him in this role. He's kind of like the Thing from the Fantastic Four. He's your average guy, your average Joe, just wants to live a normal life, but he's stuck as this monstrous freak.
He has got that sort of like gruff blue collar but with a heart of gold kind of attitude that Ben Grimm's got in that, and I really like that. Like, I warmed to the character very quickly. Like, he doesn't get an awful lot of character moments in these three issues, but
I'd agree he doesn't get that much in the whole series. I think he's the one that probably doesn't get as much time spent with him, but he's a very jovial, kind of nice guy, and he is the rock of this group, because he's just kind of, he is there and he's willing to help, and he wants to get involved, and he wants Batman to tell him his secret identity. You got to trust us. We trust you. You got to trust us.
Yeah.
So he is the kind of the kind of cornerstone of this group, I think.
For sure, yeah.
And I think he's really cool. We've got Geo-Force.
Who is the Markovian prince.
Yes.
And Brian.
Brian. I just say Brian. I watched another YouTuber and he called him Brion, and I was like, nah, it's Brian. It's Brian, mate.
But he is, his sister Tara would go on to, well, not would go on to, but his sister Tara is Terra, who featured very heavily in the New Teen Titans story, The Judas Contract, which I think was the year before 82. Is that right?
I think she was. I think they were introduced around about the same time. Within this run, they do reference the storyline of her dying and the spoilers for an almost 30, 40 years old storyline. But they do reference it very briefly, but not very long, because I don't think Marv Wolfman had told Mike Barr what he was going to do with her.
Right. Okay.
So I think that was kind of a thing. But they do have a crossover within these volumes as well, which is really cool, with Simon and the Fearsome Five, I believe. But yeah, so he gets superpowers, and his brother Baron Bedlam also has superpowers. It's from a character called Dr. Jace, who's kind of like a geneticist, I think, or something.
Yeah, like what struck me reading it was it's kind of very similar to what happens with with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in the MCU.
Yeah.
It's kind of like these two teenagers who are being like operated on by shady characters who may or may not have something to do with the government, and so that kind of stuck with me. I dug that, but he's got sort of like he manipulates gravity and the elements,
and the earth, the rock, the stones. It's kind of just it's a bit vague. I think his powers are a little vague.
They're whatever the story needs them to be.
He can fly by kind of repelling himself away from the earth. Like kind of, I think that's how he flies. And very sort of, but we're going to go into, he can give a good licking to certain characters, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that.
For sure.
In a short while. We've got Halo, who's a very mysterious young woman with basically light-based powers that can, various kind of light forms and wavelengths can do certain things. She can fly. It's kind of a little Green Lantern-ish a little bit.
Yeah, and she's very. I warned her very quickly as well, because she basically comes into the story and is like, "Can anybody tell me who I am and where I'm from? Because I haven't the faintest idea." And like she's sort of like an entry point character.
Yeah.
Again, it's going to be really interesting going back and reading the whole run to watch her character evolve, because she kind of jumps quite a lot in between these three issues.
She has probably the most development. It's quite interesting, because I knew the least about Halo, but these issues tell me, give me her entire story, basically, which I really enjoyed. You've got she's a great character, but again, I don't want to, because I know you haven't read the run, so I don't want to spoil her kind of the truth about her origins and stuff.
Okay, cool.
Because it's a very long, overarching story. But we also have Katana from the Suicide Squad and other comics as well, and Beware the Batman. She was in that as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to admit I much prefer her current costume to what she gets in these issues, but it is what it is.
It's very samurai.
We don't get an awful lot from Katana in these issues, but what we do see, especially in terms of her friendship with Halo, I really like.
Yeah, it's really good.
And also just her sort of her ambivalence towards violence, I think was quite interesting as well.
Yeah, I don't think Batman ever kind of calls her out on it either. I think he just kind of lets her get on with it, but I don't think he could stop her anyway.
Well, there are also some moments in these issues where Batman has some very ambivalent attitudes towards violence as well.
That's true.
I mean, obviously this is sort of pre-crisis, but. Yeah, whenever anyone says you have to go right back to 1939 to see Batman have an ambivalent attitude towards killing, it's like,
not really.
Not really.
No. Black Lightning, obviously famous from his own TV show. So we've said Katana, Metamorpho, Geo-Force, Black Lightning. Yeah, that's everybody, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah.
We'll talk about another character who comes in very late into the series, but there's an issue that's pretty much focused around her, so we'll talk about her later. But let's start with issue 8.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, so issue 8 features a guest star who will be famous for some, will be known by some, as the Phantom Stranger.
Yeah, now in my head, sort of Phantom Stranger and the Spectre are used kind of interchangeably, because they're both sort of supernatural characters who sort of duck in and out, and they don't often interfere directly with what characters are doing.
I think Phantom Stranger especially, I think, is more indirect than the Spectre.
Yeah, he's kind of he's probably close to the Watcher in Marvel.
Yeah, I'd argue, yeah.
But much more sort of supernatural rather than kind of
cosmic.
Alien-y. Yeah, cosmic. That's the word, cosmic, not alien-y. That's not
alien-y. It's fine.
But I really appreciated this issue. It does get very supernatural in a lot of places. So the storyline is basically children going missing, and we start with this woman who's goes into labour in the car. Geo-Force takes her to the hospital where she gives birth, and then her baby goes missing, and coincidentally this sort of doddering old man is found. He can't communicate, he can't talk, he's just kind of walking around, and then it's later revealed that the babies all over Gotham are going missing.
Yeah, which is again quite a dark storyline.
Very dark.
The tone of it is very much like your own kind of a regular comic book, but it opens with a kidnapping straight away. There's a lovely couple coming home after Christmas shopping, and they go and they walk in, and the babysitter runs out screaming your baby's gone, you know what? And then there's the detectives in there. I think the detective is basically a kind of stand-in for James Gordon in this. But he's all right. He does what it says on the tin.
He is like a palette swap James Gordon. He's just got red hair. He's still got a mustache, but he hasn't got glasses. So.
But there's a lovely bit where the mum or the babysitter's screaming at Batman's just in the house as well at this point, and she's screaming you don't care about this. You care about muggers and killers. And she's he's going, well, kidnappers still ruining families. It's still a crime. I do care. It's and it's Christmas of all times.
It was a nice little moment that actually. Yeah. I really appreciate that.
So the baby's going missing, and it starts happening, and to be fair, all the outsiders are quite down around this time of year. They're all like Black Lightning still mourning over the girl that he killed. Got Katana and Halo missing their families. Halo not knowing her family. Katana's family being not alive anymore, effectively. And Metamorpho can't get in touch with Sapphire. Brian can't get in touch with his family in Markovia. So it's a pretty grim Christmas for the Outsiders.
Yeah, it is, and it's about to get a whole lot grimmer because we realise that these babies, they're not disappearing. They're being usurped. Their bodies are being usurped. By I don't know if he's a magician or a malevolent sort of like spirit, but he had a previous like encounter with the Phantom Stranger. He was presumed dead, but like Voldemort, he just couldn't have a body anymore, so he was hopping into the bodies of these babies and draining their life force and turning them into old people, which is really fucking dark.
Yeah, the old people are going. It's almost going to the point where they appear like they have like severe, like Alzheimer's or something like that. They can't speak, they can't communicate, they're in shock, they don't know what's going on, but actually they're mentally still children. That's why they're like that.
And there's a couple of panels where you see him like entering the body of this baby, and I think his mum's like running him a bath, and then you just see him punching the mum, like this naked grown man punching the mum. So it's kind of hilarious, but also kind of terrifying.
A bit full on.
And then there are some sequences in this comic which are just pure nightmare fuel. Like there's a bit where the antagonist, whose name is
Tanarak.
I keep wanting to call him Amarak, but
he's an anorak.
He is an anorak, but he gets all these like babies to start attacking the Outsiders.
Yeah. And Batman's like Catesby like tugged on. He's like, "What the hell's that?"
Yeah, and they've got so you got these babies with like evil grins on their faces, and it's proper nightmare fuel.
And all the Outsiders like, how do we handle this situation? Because Tanarak is kind of battling in this comic, the Phantom Stranger does get fully involved. He gets fully stuck in, and has a battle, a sorceress battle with them, while the Outsiders are dealing with these babies, and they all come up with like really unique ways of dealing with them. Like Katana gets a sword out and is like, and they're like, "What are you going to do, Katana?" And they're like, she's like, "No, it's just shiny, so I'm just gonna wave it around."
Yeah, I really like that where she gets the sword out. And I was like, "What the fuck, dude?" She's like, "No, I'm just going to use it to distract them."
Babies. But yeah, like Halo distracts them with some lights, dazzling lights, and Metamorpho makes a cage, all that sort of stuff. And even like Black Nightwing's like, "Okay, I do have my powers, but I could kill again. I could accidentally kill them, if I'm not careful, especially with them being kids." And again, like a lovely character beat, for his arc going forward. And Tanarak kind of dresses like a magician as well. He's got that kind of...
with the white cape and the bow tie.
Yeah, the white suit. He does look like an evil magician. That's how I would expect an evil magician to dress.
But it gets really dark towards the end of the issue because the Phantom Stranger decides that, to save the many, he's going to sacrifice the one. So he just sacrifices this poor, like this newborn baby whose body's being turned into a grown man. And so you see I've forgotten his name again, Anorak.
Whatever you want.
You see him just kind of like shrivel away, and you see him turn into dust, and then the mother who's just given birth to this baby suddenly gives birth to another one. The doctor said, "Oh, well, I didn't think it was twins." and then the Phantom Stranger says, "Well, it looks like something more powerful than me is at work here."
Because it says, like, I think the doctor says, it looked like that she only had one baby, though. It appears like she was only ever carrying one baby.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. And I think the Halo's like, "Do you know things, Phantom Stranger?" And he's like, can you tell me who I am? And he goes, "It's not for me to know. It's even I don't know this." It's kind of there are like, so I like the Phantom Stranger as a character, I really do. But sometimes there's like certain things where I'm like, "Oh, that's a little bit of a cop out," like stuff like that. But I think one of the more disturbing scenes, and again another disturbing scene, is when the woman, the Geo-Force brings the woman in from the car. She starts giving birth, and then after she's given birth, they spank the baby on the bum as they were prone to do in those days, and it starts growing into Tanarak. All of a sudden, it's like the the eyes are glowing. Like it's very like Children of the Damned sort of thing. Like
It's kind of Cronenbergian almost.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, like The Brood or something like that. But yeah, so did you enjoy this issue? Or
I did.
Yeah?
I enjoyed it very much. And it like I say, it was a bit of a jump going from issue 1 to issue 8.
Of course, yeah.
Like it starts off with Christmas in Gotham, which I'm always like. It reminds me of Batman Returns and that animated episode Christmas with the Joker. So I'm always into that. I also like. It's really funny when the Phantom Stranger says, "I think there's something more powerful than me at work here at me." I thought, oh yeah, there is a religious aspect to Christmas. That's a thing.
There's a great bit where like the Phantom Stranger just appears to Batman and like takes him to like another dimension for a little bit or something.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and Batman's like super shocked, and he just thinks to himself, I wonder if that's how people feel when I appear and disappear. Maybe that's how they feel. So he kind of like puts a little like wry smile on his face.
Yeah, and he's like, I hope so.
Yeah. I hope that's the effect.
I hope I freak people out that
I hope I strike fear into criminals and other people too. That's my thing. That's my whole get-up.
And that's reminded me of he has this great line in issue 1 where he says to Superman, like, "Oh, I leave it to you lot to be inspiring. I just want to scare people." Which is, that's pretty Batman.
That's Batman. That's as Batman as you get. But yeah, there's a great issue later on during I think it's called The Truth About Halo storyline, and they end up in the Justice League Watchtower, and it's absolutely destroyed and wrecked. And Batman's just bitching about the Justice League. He's like, I knew this would happen. Those idiots would let this happen, and they let this just hanging in space where it's really dangerous, and all this stuff could happen, all these weapons and everything. What absolute idiots! Kind of thing. I love it. I love how bitchy and weird he gets. And in the Alan Davis issues, you get to see this like really disturbing smile every now and again from Batman.
Okay.
Like when he gets like punched in the face by Cobra or something, and he just like brushes off the blood and like gives him this like really disturbing smile, which I kind of dig a little bit. Like he's kind of enjoying it a little bit. Being a creature of the night sort of thing. So that's pretty cool. Shall we move on to the next issue?
The Outsiders made quite the splash today in Cuba. Now, #WeAreAllOutsiders is trending way beyond the States. They're blowing up internationally. Not just viral, global viral.
We did it.
As of right now, the Outsiders are bigger than the Justice League.
Bigger than the Justice League?
Yeah, I think this issue is probably my favourite out of the 3.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's got Superman in it, but also
Big
like
guest star.
it starts off in this like really incredible with Halo just sort of like bursting through the front door of Wayne Manor, and Alfred's got this tray of like gingerbread men that just gets toppled over. He's like, oh, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I really like that, and so obviously. It also plays on something that happens in the first issue where Metamorpho says, this would be easier, Batman, if you told us your secret identity.
Yeah.
And he says, well, it's on a need-to-know basis, and you don't, basically. But by this point, I'm assuming that everyone's privy to his identity because Halo just comes bursting in, and
she is,
and Bruce Wayne's in his like rich dude dressing gown with the cravat.
It's like Hugh Hefner, isn't it? It's got this Hugh Hefner look about him. But at this point, I won't spoil it for you because I think you would really enjoy the issues leading up to that. But yeah, at this point, they all know.
And at this point, I think she's been introduced to her parents, but she doesn't believe they're her parents.
That's correct, because she doesn't recall any memories, she doesn't recall any information, her friends or anything at this point. But she has found her biological parents. So, but yeah, there's still questions at this point. This issue actually comes in the middle of The Truth About Halo. So this is basically The Truth About Halo reveals where she comes from, what's happened, who she is, what her powers come from, all the details. But this issue is just dropped in the middle of that storyline.
Gotcha.
But it's nice to change of pace though. But yeah, you were saying, go on.
So yeah, she bursts into Wayne Manor and says, "Oh, you've got to stop me! Like Geo-Force is going to kill somebody." And then we go into a flashback in this really, really sweet moment where, so I'm assuming they've been dating at this point
for a little while, yeah.
And so Brian says, "Well, there's something I really want to talk to you about," and she's like, and then you just see this little thought bulb with an engagement ring in it, and she just sort of like, "Oh fuck, I'm not into this
not
at
down
all."
For that. Not down for that.
So then they both sort of say at the same time, like, "I'm not in love with you," and they're both really like
relieved
to hear it. Yeah, but like
that's not often that happens.
Yeah, but it's sort of, especially in comics as well, and especially like pop culture in general in this era where like women were almost like a commodity, like something to be won over by the heroes. And I really like you have this moment where you have two characters who sort of like celebrate the fact that their love for each other is platonic. And that just really made me happy, because I think we don't see enough platonic intergender relationships in pop culture in general, like still today. So that's something that I really appreciate.
Very much a Harry met Sally mentality, that sex will always get in the way, sort of thing. Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's a lovely moment, and these are characters that you become really fond of, and you want to see them happy. You don't want to see them, arguing or having issues and stuff with each other. So it's a genuine, touching moment, and I really enjoyed that as well. I felt that was really sweet.
And it's really like, so he's got this little box which she assumes is an engagement ring, and she opens it, and it's like a gold chain with like a little halo in it, and I just thought that was adorable.
It looks a bit like, have you seen The Evil Dead? There's like he has the little necklace for I think it's Linda. Ash has for Linda in the film, and it looks a bit like that.
It's been a long time since I've seen The Evil Dead, to be honest, but I'll take your word for it on that.
That's fair enough. So so we've got another. So Halo at this point has been reunited with her family now. In the intervening issues, she's become she's basically been adopted by Katana, who again doesn't have a family anymore, doesn't have any relatives that are alive. So she's become a mothering influence and a best friend, and it's nice to see, like, because Katana's quite a stern character. She's quite a dark, brooding character. And it's nice to see these little twinkles of a lighter, softer side.
For sure,
And at this point in the book, she's accepted that Halo needs to be with her family, her original family. She needs to, find that again, and she's trying to come to terms with it, and it's very difficult for her.
She's really she knows she feels it's what's best for her, but she's really reluctant to let her go. And I think you don't get an awful lot of development for Katana in these issues, but that moment I think is really, really powerful and really great. And then that moment between Brian and Halo is interrupted by the phone ringing, and it is Denise. What's the second name?
I can't remember, but Denise is a friend of Brian from Gotham University, so they both study together, and she's she's just a friend at this point in the book. She's just a kind of friend, and basically calling it as it's a plea for help at this point, because she has taken an overdose and she's not been able to contact the emergency services or anything, but she did think to contact Brian, who goes to her rescue immediately.
And now this is where it gets really really dark and really quite social commentary-ish as well, because the reason she's taking this overdose is because the dean, like her tutor at uni, has made sort of sexual advances, I believe. We don't see it in this issue. It's
definitely in the previous issue. You see in the previous issue it happen, and it's a set of kind of silent panels where you just see her absolutely distressing about, because it's basically he has the power to, approve a scholarship, I believe. So it's her whole future is riding on it.
Right.
And Dean Rayburn, I believe he's called, has said, basically, you will give me sexual pleasure or you won't get your scholarship.
That's right,
Which is obviously the most disturbing part of this story. But Brian gets that information out of Denise before she I think she falls into a sleep or a coma or something. And he says, I'm going to kill him, which is a genuine, honest reaction I think anybody would have when somebody they care about has not only almost killed themselves, but through somebody has tried to sexually molest them as well. So this is, I think for me the last one was disturbing, but this one is like more disturbing in a real world way. Because this stuff happens. But so he basically flies towards where he believes the dean to be, to kill him, and Halo contacts Batman. That's where we go back to the beginning of the issue, and Halo's bursting in and says, Batman, we need to stop Geo-Force from killing this guy.
And then so Batman just sort of like starts walking down to the Batcave, and she said, well, none of us are powerful enough to face him. He's like, but I know a man who is. And then we cut to Metropolis, and it's like the Daily Planet Christmas do. They're all gathered around a big punch bowl singing carols, and then you just hear this like beep 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 going to Clark's ear, and then just zoom, he's off. And there's a really sweet moment where there's a mother and a little boy, and the little boy says, Mum, look at that. And she says, did you see Santa Claus? He says, oh, even better. And then you see Superman like flying through the snow in Metropolis. I just thought that was a really cute image.
That is sick. Yeah, I really like that. But yeah, and we also get like, I think Katana and Black Lightning are going kind of on patrol. I think Black Lightning's wanted to speak to her and said, right, this guy's robbing from Santa. You know, there's these guys robbing from Santa. And she was like, and it's just one guy, it's one like lone gunman. And Black Lightning goes, why are you avoiding Halo? Why won't you see Halo? She, you know, you care about her so much. Why won't you see her? And she's like, it's better for both of us. It's too hard to see her.
Yeah.
It's too painful at this time. And she needs to forget about me and get involved with the parents and try and get those old memories back if possible. And again, just a lovely little sweet moment for Katana.
Yeah, I'm always into anything where I actually got a bit of an identity crisis vibe from these pages, because Katana and Black Lightning, I believe, are in a few panels together in that story.
Yeah,
but mostly it reminds me of the start of that story, where I'm always up for superheroes just being on patrol but also talking about personal stuff while doing a bit of like low-level crime busting.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but for some reason I really dig that. I really enjoy that.
I always really enjoyed like the Avengers sitting around just having coffee.
Yeah,
you know,
for
just
sure.
around the mansion, just chilling, not doing any world saving.
Me too. Like,
I love that
in
stuff.
fact, I think my favourite part of Age of Ultron is just the scene where they're just like hanging out after catching the bad guys, just hanging out and having a party and a few beers,
telling some stories, trying to pick up Thor's hammer. It's brilliant. I love it. I think I hope we see more of that in the kind of MCU in the future. Fingers crossed.
for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so now we come to the big set piece of the issue. So
Yeah, so this Weasley Dean is like taking his wife for a romantic weekend in this sort of like cabin, and then
is it his wife? I thought it was another like student. I wasn't sure.
Is it? Oh, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure myself, but either way, he's with a woman in this cabin, whoever it may be, and Geo-Force busts in, and he's hulking, he's angry.
He's got a new uniform as well.
He does have a new uniform. I think it was a birthday gift, I believe, in one of the annuals. I prefer the green, to be honest. I think brown isn't a very good colour for superheroes.
Well, it was very similar to Terra's costume, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you know what? I actually think he changed it because Terra died.
Ah, okay.
I think it was kind of something to do with that, because I think they're both mentioned in the same issue. But yeah, he basically busts into this chalet or this cabin or whatever it is, and basically he's about to kill Rayburn.
Yeah, who pulls a gun on him and just snatches it out of his hand and just crushes it into powder, which is I thought was great. And then the next thing you look over his shoulder and there's Superman in full Superman pose, hands on hips. You know, this isn't how we do this.
Yeah, this is not how heroes roll.
Yeah,
but it's quite an interesting kind of. He's almost like, you're defending him. You're defending this act, this horrible thing that he's done. You're on his side. I can't believe you, of all people, the most moral person on this planet, you were okay with this. I think he punches him in the face, almost breaks his hand.
Yeah,
standard Superman stuff.
And he says, they've all got to learn the hard way.
I'm bored of this now. I'm bored of people punching me in the face. But you know what? Geo-Force actually gives Superman a run for his money.
Yeah, by and that's something that I really appreciate. He manipulates the gravity around Superman because he says part of your power comes from the fact that you're from a planet with stronger gravity. Well, I can take that advantage away from you by manipulating gravity. So I really enjoyed that. And I also enjoyed the idea that there's this interplay between them where Geo-Force has, because he's younger, he has this sort of very black and white view of the world. So it's I don't have to be condoning this action to know that, killing isn't the best thing to do. Or no, sorry, not even the best. It's not an appropriate solution.
No, for this matter, no. It's not. It's vengeance. It's not justice.
Exactly.
That whole argument. Cool, really well choreographed fight. It's fun. It's in the snow, and like we said, we see and Superman he comes out of it worse for wear. He's got bruises, marks. It's not like he flicks him in the face and it's over and done with. Geo-Force does have that potential to be super powerful.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I'm pretty sure at the end of the issue he goes, once he's a bit more experienced, he's going to be top level.
Yeah, there's no bad blood there by the end of the fight. He's actually kind of proud of him, which I appreciated. But Superman just has this little sort of speech where he says it's you can't just kill people. You've got to believe that they have the capacity to reform and to be better. And Geo-Force is like, well, all I can see is my friend in the hospital, and you want to defend the man who put her there.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, it's one of those things where it's physical combat, but it's also a conflict of ideologies.
Yeah,
and I'm always into that. And I like that Superman sort of like has a little look around with his supervision and says, right, okay, nobody's here, and then just claps his hands together. And Geo-Force is like, what? And he causes an avalanche.
You give me a round of applause or something?
But he causes an avalanche which lands on both of them, and then you just see Superman just sort of like laser vision his way out and then fly away. I really appreciated that. That was a really cool visual.
Yeah. So Superman defeats him. They come back. Halo's met Superman, and that was a really nice meeting as well, because they're both like kind of beacons of positivity for me.
Yeah.
And they're both, she's very young and very positive, and she's like, wow, that it's Superman, and bowled over, and he's like, and he genuinely likes her as well. So it's a nice little meeting. But this is the clincher, because Rayburn says, Superman says, well, Geo-Force has made some very compelling accusations against you. What do you have to say for yourself?
And he says like, oh, I deny everything. I absolutely deny it. And then you just see this bat over his shoulder, and then Batman's there with like a manila envelope, like, really, bitch?
Yeah. And Batman's in the time, while Superman's been dealing with Geo-Force and stopping him, Batman's got testimony from former students or students that didn't or did take to the advances, or the blackmail, or what have you. And, he's going, yeah, you can probably argue one when it's, a word against one person, your word against hers. But try 8.
Yeah.
Try 8 people. There you go. Have that. Stick that up your Christmas tree, So it was a really... I was so happy that it ended that way. Like, there was justice in the end.
Yeah.
It was, and he did it, they did it the right way, they did it the moral way, they did it with evidence and testimony, and they could stand up in a court of law, and, justice won out in the end. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, and it ends with this really sweet exchange between Brian and Denise in the hospital, and then you just, like, see him holding her hand, and then in the window behind him, you can see Superman and Halo sort of, like, flying off into the snow. And really, really good issue. Yeah, I enjoyed it very, very much.
Yeah, I think this one. I think I agree. I think this one is my favourite as well, because it's, again, Superman's in it. It's nice fun. It's a great battle, and it's got some real world kind of ramifications and story. And I do like that in a comic. To have real world implications. It's not all just flights of fancy. I like that sort of stuff. So it was nice, and I think that story even it still resonates to this day. It still works as a story. The same sort of issues. But I loved it. Thought it was great. That was issue, I don't know if we mentioned it at the start, but that's issue 19.
19, yeah.
19 of the run. So let's go on to our final Christmas issue.
So this is 31? 31,
yes, 31. Yeah. So this is a storyline. This is the finale of a storyline. So the final issue of a storyline called The Truth About Looker. So this is a kind of the final member of the Outsiders that is introduced. She's a bank kind of operator. I don't know what's the best way to describe her, I think.
Mousy?
Mousy, yeah, kind of mousy. She's not very confident in her looks or who she is. She feels like she gets passed over for a promotion because there's someone more kind of classically good looking, classically attractive, or what society deems as more attractive. She has a loving husband, a doting husband, absolutely adores her, but she doesn't kind of believe it. She's like, oh, you could be with anybody, you could be with anybody else. And she's introduced a few issues prior to this storyline. And then in this storyline, she finds out that she is the descendant of a race of people, underground kind of dwelling people, not mole people, but kind of just an underground race of people. And the place is called Abyssia. And there's a couple of characters who are kind of having a civil war. There's a prince and a princess. I think it's Prince Mordo or Morad, or you've got
Maru.
Maru. Okay,
Prince Maru. Yeah,
and I think it's like Tatiana or Tamira or something like that.
Wait a second. It is Tamira. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Cool.
Tamira.
So they are currently in the midst of a civil war, and she's the descendant of another line of royalty. And they experiment on her, and the Outsiders go to rescue her and get embroiled in all this. A couple of them have their minds controlled because the royalty, the royal bloodline, have superpowers, so kind of telekinesis. and kind of telepathic powers, so they're able to do certain things. But the rest of the kind of people of Abyssia don't have any superpowers.
Right.
And this comes from Halley's Comet. So it it travelled past the world. I think it was a segment of the comet came off, and they kind of absorbed the powers from that comet. And it's coming back around again, and I think the plan, if I remember rightly, the plan is to use their telekinesis to draw the comet into the Earth.
That's right, yeah.
Kill the surface people, the surface world, and then kind of rule over what's the remainder of the kind of underground kind of world.
Yeah, so Prince Maru actually says, like, I want to wipe out all life on this planet so we can start again, much like General Zod in Man of Steel. And he says it'll be all the benefits of a nuclear winter without all that nasty radiation, basically.
Okay.
Which, yeah,
Sure.
okay, fine. So yeah, when we join the outsiders in this issue, most of them, well, they're all tied up, and they're forced to witness this. They're putting her in this sort of like sphere of light, which is basically a sexualizer. And then she emerges, and she's no longer got glasses and a ponytail, and she's all hot, and she's got this really bizarre costume.
I honestly think this is one of the worst costumes I've ever seen in anything.
So it's like a pink leotard. One of the legs is cut off, and
there's a bow. There's a bow on the hip.
Yeah,
and there's
a bow on her hip,
and there's kind of a Captain Marvel short cape as well.
And there's it's got a very very low like plunging neckline, and half of it's pink, half of it's black.
Yeah, so a missing leg, and there's a revealed leg and a revealed arm, like sleeveless arm.
She's got like one like Captain America-y kind of boot that's blue and white, and one glove that's blue and white. It's all over the place, and she's got these really like Deadpool-ish kind of like blue rings around her eyes.
Yeah, it's almost like it almost looks like a bit like the original Dazzler design from the X-Men.
Okay,
because she had a kind of a pop, kind of imagine Lady Gaga, but for the disco era. Okay, that's what Dazzler kind of looked like. I don't think it's a very good look for Looker.
No, they basically put her in a She's All That machine. And she emerges like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, and she's given, again, telekinesis, telepathy, and she's controlled by one of them, but then she switches sides, and then I think she switches back, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, that's right. Like, she's been given this mind control potion by the princess, but then it's revealed that the prince has given her
another one?
some sort of like dominance spell.
Oh, yeah, doesn't he say, now I've given you the power to be a looker, and that kind of triggers his control over or something like that.
That's right, yeah.
Some subliminal, mind control thing.
It's really weird. But basically, she turns on the princess. The one bit that actually made me laugh out loud is, so the princess has got this giant stone statue of herself, and she says, wait, will you at least tell us how you overcame our obedience potion? And she just lifts up this giant statue and goes, no, and squishes her with the statue. You just see this, like, arm and this, like, puddle of blood.
Squish.
And you're like, well, shit.
Yeah.
That was a thing that happened.
Yeah, so that was, some blatant squishy murder. But I think the end, she overcomes the mind control or something happened. I'll be honest, before we even talk about the end, I didn't enjoy this one.
No, it's not a great issue.
I don't know how you felt, because this is, again, I don't know if you read the other issues leading up to this. It would have probably made a lot more sense. But even then, it's just it's a story I've seen a million times before. Subterranean people at war, and it's just by the numbers. It's not very interesting, and I think the character of Looker is problematic.
Yeah, I mean, the very name Looker, it's kind of got misogynistic undertones anyway. The costume is
very revealing.
It's very of that sort of 80s, 90s kind of era. Yeah. The main issue for me was I didn't know whether it was because I was just coming into it at the end of an arc.
The arc,
but there was very little like character stuff, because that's what I glom onto, you know, and that's what, like, if I've got enough of that, I can handle pretty much any kind of twists and turns into the story. Like, I'm here for the characters and their interactions, which is, why I can overlook, like, I get a hell of a lot out of films that maybe most people don't like, because I like just good interaction between characters. But this didn't do an awful lot for me, and it's a lot of like people flinging energy bolts at each other, and it's a bit of a criticism of comics of the time. There's a lot of telling instead of showing.
Yeah.
And I think for a visual medium, that's a little bit problematic. I think we get a lot less of it now. I think we get maybe internal monologues now, but like there's a lot of people just describing what's going on in these issues. And it's
I think it's kind of, I think he's trying to do like an ugly duck storyline kind of thing. Like actually she has all this power, she has all this inner beauty that has now come out. But the thing is, she gets really arrogant about it, and she gets really full of herself. There's an issue after this, the final issue of the run, where she gets catcalled by some builders, and she likes it.
Right, yeah.
Which I didn't really enjoy. I didn't really think that's how you would, respond to stuff like that. But I guess, she's been given confidence, but it's more like overconfidence and arrogance. And I think that's her story, is that I was ugly, now I'm pretty. That is it.
Yeah.
That is her story. And it's not interesting, it's not fascinating, and it's tied up with this subterranean war, civil war going on. She does have this doting husband who absolutely loves her, and he loves her regardless of her new looks anyway. He was happy with her before. So I just don't get it, really.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for, like, being confident in yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Not through the prism of your relationship to someone of the opposite gender,
No,
but
true.
like there wasn't enough of the character for me to sort of like appreciate that sort of sense of liberation, as it were. The issue even ends with like the husband, and he's sort of like, "Oh, Emily told me to go to this hotel room," and then he opens the door. He's like, "Oh, sorry, I think I've got the wrong room." And then she's like, "Oh no, it's me," and she's like basically wearing like a bit of tissue paper. And then like she turns around the "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door and closes it, and then this like maid's just walking past pushing a trolley. And she's like, "Oh, that's nice." You kids. You kids go at it.
You kids and your sexual stuff.
So yeah, that's how the issue ends.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a bit jarring for me because we come in right at the end of this story. I think even if I had read all of it, I would still be a little bit sort of about this issue.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I'm putting Looker in. For Marvel, there's one of my least favourite characters, a character called Star Fox. Who is basically Thanos' brother, and he has a creepy power that he can manipulate emotions, and he's based on, like, he's called Eros, based on the god of love and everything, but he can emotionally manipulate people's pleasure centers in their brains.
Right.
And I think in She-Hulk he even has a court battle about it, because people are like, well, you've purple manned me a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'd never really liked him anyway, because he was just a bit cheesy and over the top and like full of himself, loved himself. And I think Looker is now the DC equivalent of Star Fox for me.
Yeah, for different reasons.
Yeah, for different reasons entirely. I just think she's poorly conceived character, poorly designed, poor storyline, no backstory, nothing interesting about her. Like all the stuff you talked about with like Black Lightning, Katana, all this really interesting stuff and great kind of interpersonal relationships and backstories. Looker has none of that. It's just, I feel like they've just gone, we need a new character, there you go.
Yeah, and there's just fundamentally that sort of like, well, if I was attractive, I'd have value.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a little bit...
it's not
problematic.
True. Yeah, but the story is what the story is. An issue after that is the final issue with Batman. He leaves the team. Again, I won't spoil how that ends or anything.
It's okay, the cover's right there on the front of the volume.
He's walking away grimly. But yeah, it's kind of... It's similar reasons why he started The Outsiders is similar reason why he leaves. They carry on regardless because they're a family, they're a team, they're a unit, and there's another series that carries on after that with another Christmas issue. Maybe we'll get to that sometime in the future. I want to ask, how Christmassy are these issues? Do you feel have they got enough Christmas elements in them that you feel?
I mean, not massively. No. I'm struggling to sort of like think. There are a few panels that feel Christmassy, like I say, especially at the start of the first two issues, where we're just basically seeing people doing Christmas stuff and
shopping, or a tree, or caroling with Superman, and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, that's kind of pretty much it. I mean, it's the actual thrust of the story isn't really Christmas related, but it's that Die Hard thing, isn't it? If something's set at Christmas, is it still a Christmas movie?
Yeah, exactly. That's the argument.
Is this a Christmas comic? If you want it to be, sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're all set at Christmas, and that's why I chose them. And I think I had a lot of fun with these issues as well. Like, not the last one, but I'm glad that they weren't all kind of, middle of the road or boring or uninteresting or too like schmaltzy or sentimental.
For sure, yeah.
I'm really glad that they're hard hitting and gripping as well, and good character interaction, good artwork, good story for the most part. They were fun, and I'm glad I picked these, and I've had a lot of fun reading these.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad you introduced me to the title, because I am really looking forward to going back and like reading these 3 volumes in their entirety, which I'm pretty sure I'll start doing tonight actually.
Yeah,
but also just this idea of like cherry picking out certain issues has actually made me think a little bit harder about like how I read comics, because what I tend to do is I tend to wait till things are cheap on the sale, and then when they're on the sale, I'll get like these big volumes.
Big collections.
But then because my collection is just growing, I find myself like racing through the comics to try and consume so I can move on to the next thing, which I think is a bit of a problem, because you can't really like, it's like trying to wolf down a 3-course meal. You can't really savor anything.
I think that's the word, is you don't necessarily savor it. If you buy these big omnibuses and you're like, I just want to finish this, get it all done, and then I can move on to something else. And sometimes I don't like, there's panels and stuff and pages and stuff that I treasure as a kid. I used to read over and over and over again.
For sure, yeah.
And like now, I don't really do that as much.
Yeah.
I very rarely will go back to stuff unless, I'm maybe doing a review of it or something like that. But yeah, I think you are right. There's something about the kind of way we consume media in general. I think we're bingers now, aren't we? That's what we do.
It's so abundant and so affordable now. So I think just going back and cherry picking 3 issues, I had a little bit. I mean, I think I spent less than an hour reading all 3. About an hour including the first issue actually. But like, it just gave me like, okay, so I know I'm only gonna have to read these like 20 pages.
Yeah.
So I can take my time with it. I can absorb what's going on, even though in the 3rd issue it was fucking pandemonium anyway. But yeah, I'm grateful to you and to the podcast for A, introducing me to this title, and B, just like giving me the opportunity to read like 3 issues rather than like a trade paperback of 6.
Yeah, exactly.
So I could take my time with them.
Yeah, and you can just cherry pick, have your fun, and have your cake and eat it.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly. Or your Christmas pudding in this instance, perhaps.
Where do you stand on Christmas pudding? Because I think I'm the only person I know who likes it.
I don't like it.
Yeah, there you go.
There's a lot of people don't. Anyway, so if you want to find these books, they are available on Comixology in 3 volumes, or you can buy the single issues on Comixology as well, or you can try hunting down the original issues on eBay, possibly, or you can buy the physical copies as well, the physical volumes of these comics as well.
Support brick and mortar. Always support brick and mortar. I haven't in this case, but do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. Or you can visit our favourite comic book shop on this podcast, the Comic Den in Oldham, if you're in that area, or in Manchester. I do recommend going back to Den's shop. Den is on this podcast quite a lot. We've done several interviews with people from Malta. Been involved with the Oldham Comic Con that he produces as well. But I'll have him on again. He's chomping at the bit to be on this again, because he loves Superman like yourself, Dan. Comics in general.
The shop's so good you won't even mind that you're in Oldham. That's how good it is.
I'll tell you what, I'm going tomorrow, so that's Saturday. What are we on today? Saturday the 20th. So Friday the 20th we're recording. I'm going Saturday the 21st. You probably won't hear this until I'm well and true. That date is well and truly gone, but who cares? I'm going to be there. There's a little quiz we're having. So going to be like presents giving and things. So it's going to be a nice little thing to do. So that's going to be lovely. But yeah, definitely read this whole series, because I've had a blast. I honestly went right through it, kind of binged it all in a good way. It wasn't like I was just, I've got to get through it. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm glad you enjoyed it as well, Dan.
For sure, yeah.
But we will leave this for the day, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas, or whatever holiday you are celebrating. Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, you name it. All the holiday season. Hope you enjoy your time with your family and friends, whatever you're doing. But just before we go, we're just going to talk about where we can find us on the social medias. So where can they find you, Dan?
If you must, you can find me on Twitter.
If you must, don't contact me, please.
I'm at DL Keatis, Keatis. I'll be there trying to be a source of positivity in an oppressively negative online environment.
The deluge of shit.
Oh,
there is a lot there.
Yeah,
Star Wars is out, so we know we're going to have a lot of angry fanboys, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've noticed that Star Wars fandom is mostly composed of people who hate Star Wars. Quite incredible.
Anyway, so you can find us, you can find Dan at The Secret Balls, so it's at Secret Balls on Facebook, at Twitter, Dan_balls, Spider on Secret Balls on Instagram, and the podcast is available everywhere. And don't forget to use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.